Eben Alexander is a healthy 58-year-old Harvard-trained neurosurgeon, a man of science, an expert on the brain, and he's got something extraordinary to tell you.
Did you go to heaven?
Yes.
4 years ago, Alexander nearly died from a massive brain infection that plunged him into a coma and shut down nearly his entire mind. He was barely alive in this world, but he says he journeyed elsewhere.
I was rescued by this beautiful spinning white light that had a melody, indescribably beautiful melody, that opened up into a bright valley. Very verdant valley, blossoming flowers.
And he says God was there as a vast presence of infinite love. He met a young woman, he says, his guide, as they soared on a butterfly wing, and she gave him a message from heaven.
You are loved, you are cherished, there's nothing you have to fear, there's nothing you can do wrong.
A lot of people are going to say, Doctor, it was a hallucination.
I know this was not a hallucination, not a dream, not what we call a confabulation. I know that it really occurred, and I know it occurred outside of my brain.
As a neurosurgeon and a skeptic about God before his coma, Alexander says there is no scientific explanation for what he experienced, given how sick his brain was, how near death. Other scientists dismiss his claims, but there's this. After he recovered, he was sent a picture of a long-dead sister he had never met or seen. It was her, the girl he believes he saw on the butterfly wing in heaven.
It was the most profound experience I've ever had in this life.
For Good Morning America, Terry Moran, ABC News, Lynchburg.
And I remember that I was laying there on the ground. They put this poncho over me. Like, the only time we put ponchos over people were when they were dead. And I guess for the first time, and I had no comprehension of what length of time this was, I realized that I was dead. I wasn't alive. I wasn't functioning as a human being anymore. And all of a sudden I realized that I wasn't visualizing this from the ground. I was looking down and seeing this go on. I don't ever remember leaving my body, quote, and it was really a weird experience because there was no emotions. There was nothing. It was just total peace and tranquility, and all of a sudden I just realized I didn't exist anymore.
Typical field procedure dictated that the mortally wounded be airlifted to the nearest possible field hospital. Tommy was rushed to the 25th Division Headquarters Hospital near Cu Chi, some 20 miles from the battlefield.
One of the things that you learn real fast in Vietnam when you have a lot of casualties, that people have priority over other people depending on their wounds. Now, realistically, if I had been in charge, somebody in my condition, I probably would have given a low priority due to the extent of the injuries. But for some reason, a doctor came over and lifted the poncho up. I saw him do it very clearly, and all of a sudden I had a group of people on me trying to do whatever it is they were trying to do to me. They lifted me up and took me into the operating room. I saw him cut my clothes off. I saw him start IVs. I didn't feel any remorse or anything. It was just total peace and nothing for what was laying there that was my body. But then all of a sudden, I left that operating room, and it was almost like a blink of the eyes, and I was back at the battlefield where I had gotten injured. And at that particular time, I think is when I come to realize I really was dead, because everybody in Vietnam that I had put in plastic bags, when somebody got killed, you put them in a plastic bag, were right there with me. They were around me. Jeff and Mark and all these guys were right there with me, and we communicated like we were talking with our minds, and I was above the earth, and it was a gigantic brightness that surrounded the whole battlefield that was just pure peace. 10 days later, I woke up, and I was laying in a bed in Cu Chi, Vietnam, and I did not have to ask what went on. I remember everything that went on. I knew I was missing the limbs. I didn't realize they had cut my left leg off in the operating room. It was beyond repair. But I told the doctor everything that had gone on, what they had done to me, that I had been covered up. And even a couple of guys that lived through the battle with me stopped by, and I told them who had gotten killed that day, and there was no way for me to know that except that I had been with them. Wherever we were, whatever that place was, whatever it was, we were there together because we were all dead.
Vicky Umipeg from Seattle in the USA has been blind since birth. In January 1973, she was terribly injured in a car crash.
I had a skull fracture, concussion, neck injury, back injury, leg injury, and I was dead for 4 minutes.
Vicky's heart had stopped. Was she clinically dead, or just in a deep coma?
My back was up against the ceiling, and then I was looking down at everything. The one doctor said, well, it's a pity now that she could be deaf as well as blind because there's blood on her left eardrum. And then the female doctor said, well, we don't even know if she's going to survive this coma, and if she does, she could be in a permanent vegetative state, and that made me mad.
As she fought for her life, something even more extraordinary happened. Vicky could see for the very first time.
I felt like it was a nightmare because I have never been accustomed to perceiving of anything from a distance. And I touch things. My world is at arm's length. I perceive of everything tactily, and I couldn't translate what it was that I was receiving. And it was scary to be able to, a lot of people have asked me, well, wasn't it wonderful to see? Actually, no, it wasn't. It was terrible initially. I saw this ring on my left ring finger, and I thought, okay, that is me. And I also realized I had very long hair then down to my waist, and I realized that they'd shaved off quite a lot of it, and I was pretty upset about that.
How could Vicky's blind eyes see?
I mainly dream even with taste, touch, sound, and smell, but in my dreams there is no light, no color, and there are no visual impressions.
Vicky's experience interests scientists. She works with a psychologist from New York University specializing in the near-death experiences of the blind, Sharon Cooper.
If you compared her case with many sighted near-death experiencers, you would not find differences. The only difference that I was able to discern between her case and a sighted person is her description of color. She called it different brightnesses of light, and that's because she had no way to understand what color was. She did notice differences in the environment during her experience. She just didn't know what to call them.
Vicky Umipeg survived and returned to her world of darkness. She still has no doubt that for just a few minutes she was able to see.
I do know that there are many people who are going to be skeptical and who don't understand and who don't believe what I say, but I know what I experienced, I know what I saw, I know what I heard, I know what I felt. And so I just leave it at that.
Vicky's story seems to challenge rational scientific explanation. And there are others. How does science explain another widely reported part of the near-death experience, floating outside the body? Cardiologist Pim van Lommel also has his own explanations about how images are received into a non-functioning brain.
Until now we had a concept
that consciousness and memories are generated by your brain. If this concept is true, then it would not be possible to experience your full consciousness with memories from early childhood, with cognition, with emotion, with perception, above and beyond your body, during a period when your brain is not functioning.
But if the brain is dead and unable to generate images, where do they come from? Van Lommel's controversial theory is that in some way consciousness exists outside the brain, something it can plug into.
So I compare the brain with a kind of
receiver, as an interface, as a decoder for consciousness, to connect consciousness to our world. The internet you receive is not in your computer. When you switch your computer off, the internet is still everywhere.
Everywhere where you put another computer on.
If his theory is correct, then the visual components of NDEs are visions of an unplugged brain floating freely.
energy streams in simultaneously through all of our sensory systems in the form of energy. All our sensory systems. And then it explodes into this enormous collage of what this present moment looks like, what it feels like, and what it sounds like. It explodes into this enormous collage. And in this moment, we are perfect. We are whole. We are whole. And we are beautiful. And we are beautiful.
It appears rather gruesome, wrinkled like a walnut, and with the consistency of mushrooms, like a walnut.
What we know is encoded in cells called neurons, and there are something like 100 trillion neural connections. This intricate and marvelous network of neurons has been called an enchanted loom. An enchanted loom. The neurons store sounds to snatches of music. Whole orchestras play inside our heads. 20 million volumes worth of information is inside the heads of every one of us. The brain is a very big place in a very small space.
Information in the form of energy streams in simultaneously through all of our sensory systems in the form of energy. All our sensory systems. And then it explodes into this enormous collage of what this present moment looks like, what it feels like, and what it sounds like.
No longer at the mercy of the reptile brain, we can change ourselves. Think of the possibilities.
Think of your brain as a newspaper. Think of all the information it can store, but it doesn't take up too much room because it's full. Think of all the information it can store.
We see with the eyes, but we see with the brain as well. And seeing with the brain is often called imagination. The brain can contemplate the vast range. The brain
has evolved in successive stages.
And we are beautiful. Think of all the information it can store. And then it explodes into this enormous collage. And in this moment, we are perfect. We are whole. And we are beautiful.
It is the most mysterious part of the human body, and yet it dominates the way we live our adult lives. It is the brain.